Hey, hi, hello. My name's Rebecca, and on Sundays I sit down and talk about spooky stuff, whether that is true crime, paranormal hauntings, or conspiracies. So first of all, thank you so much for your support on my last video. I have no words. All I have to say is thank you, and let's keep going. I have a couple different stories today, so instead of one long story, I'm going to do 4 shorter stories. I also got tea, because last time I didn't have anything to drink, which proved to be a mistake because I talked for forever. So, get a drink, sit down, and let's listen to these 4 stories. So all of these stories are from different parts of the world, but they all have one thing in common, and that thing is rituals. Some of them are religious rituals, some of them are magic rituals, and some of them are just weird rituals. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Danielle Harkins was a 35-year-old literacy teacher at the Leilman and Asian Neighborhood Family Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, I know, Florida, crazy people, but let me just point out, I am from Florida and we are not all this crazy. Maybe just a little bit crazy. Anyway. She was a very well-loved teacher. Everyone that she worked for and worked with thought she was amazing. She was really good at helping the kids get it, and they all bonded with her. Now, in June of 2012, she was dealing with some pretty life-altering decisions. She had just taken her husband George to court for a domestic dispute. However, the judge dismissed it and let him off. And because of this, she ended up deciding to divorce him. Now, as if divorce wasn't hard enough already, they had 2 children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. So on top of the stress of divorce, she was worried about the custody battle. Time and time again throughout history, people have turned to religion to help them during their time of stress and need. And that is exactly what Danielle did. I could not find exactly what religion she belonged to, but in her studies, she somehow got the idea that people have demons inside them and they needed to be exorcised. Exorcism is usually a Christian concept, but again, I don't know for sure what religion she was taking part in. Her neighbor Lisa later on says that she remembers Danielle coming over one day and they chatted, and as she's leaving, Danielle puts her hand on Lisa's shoulder and says, "You're okay. You don't have any demons." And Lisa's like,
"Thanks. Bye?"
So she thought that was weird, but whatever. They've been neighbors for forever, and Danielle was a nice girl. On June 9th in 2012, she asked 7 of her students to meet her at the St. Petersburg Pier. When the kids get there, she is building a raging bonfire, and she says, "You are all infested with demons. The only way to get these demons out is to cut your skin and then cauterize the wounds so that they cannot re-enter your body." All of the students are somehow convinced that yes, they do have demons. They need to cut themselves and let the demons free. So they all start doing just that. Before their exorcism ritual, they said a prayer and did a little dance around the bonfire. Danielle was using a lighter to cauterize the wounds. However, the pier was on the water, so wind was coming off of the water and the lighter kept going out. Her next step was to take a key, heat it up in the flames, and basically cauterize the wound by branding the kids. One of the kids' wounds wasn't closing right, and so she took perfume, doused his wound in perfume, and then proceeded to brand him. Perfume is an accelerant, and his hand lit on fire, and He got second-degree burns all up and down his arms and his hands. Another kid, she ended up slashing in the neck with a bottle to let the demons out because it was a particularly difficult demon to exorcise. And again, she cauterizes his neck with a burning key. The weird thing is that nobody saw this happening in a public park. It was at dusk. It wasn't in the dead of night. And for the next couple of days, nobody found out about it until one of the students that was involved in the ritual told his friend, "Hey, I did this weird thing with my teacher. Look at my wound." And his friend was like, and told his parents, and the parents contacted the police. Danielle was arrested on June 12th of 2012, and she was charged with 1 count of child abuse and 1 count of aggravated battery of a child. She was held on a $55,000 bail and ended up spending 6 months in prison for her crimes. She has since been released and disappeared, basically. None of her students wanted to say anything poorly against her. There was one student that spoke to the press and said, "I know she's in custody. I'm okay." And that's all they got out of them. None of them provided any insight as to why they decided to do this. It's clear that she was struggling with some mental and emotional issues, and rather than an exorcism, professional medical help should have been sought out instead of self-medicating with a twisted ideology masked as religion. Sisters Peggy Labossiere and Rachel Hilaire were living together in a home in East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, which is about 25 miles outside of Boston. Peggy had a little bit of money left over from the Christmas holidays, and she decided to take it and get her hair done. While she was getting her hair done, her hairdresser started chatting to her about this and that, and eventually they got onto the topic of how her hairdresser's children were not behaving and were not listening to her at all. Now Peggy, hearing this, pipes up and says, "Hey, I'm a Christian voodoo practitioner, and I've been giving ritual cleansing baths to family and friends for years. I can definitely help you out. What's probably happening here is your children have probably been possessed by evil spirits." A couple of weeks later, Peggy's hairdresser loads her 5-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son into the car and takes them over to Peggy's house for a slumber party, which is kind of odd. I don't know if they knew each other that well, but okay. Peggy, with the assistance of her sister Rachel, proceed to tie the children's hands and feet with elastics and tape their mouth. They told them that if they resisted anything, they would chop off their head with a machete. I'm not familiar with Haitian Voodoo, but from what I read, it is very popular for ritual baths and cleanses to happen. Usually you have a bath with herbs and spices, for example, eucalyptus, frankincense, myrrh, and you would rub it all over your body, and then you blow fire across your body to cleanse yourself of the spirits. Before they did this ritual bath, Peggy kissed the little girl all over her face and then took a needle and scratched at her skin, on her hands and her collarbones and all over her face until there's a little bit of blood drawn. He then rubbed essential oils all over the girl's face, eyes, and entire body. Peggy then took a stick that had been sitting in a fire all across the girl's face and body. Now, these essential oils were not just your basic oils. It wasn't just lavender and lemon and eucalyptus. No, these oils had been mixed with sodium hydroxide, or lye, and the chemicals mixed with the oils, mixed with the embers of the flame, ignited the girl's face. She is now permanently disfigured. While the girl lay screaming in pain, they proceeded to do the same thing to the son, particularly focusing on his genitals, because he was 8 years old, and you're starting to hit puberty around this time. Thankfully, the son was not permanently disfigured. A few days later, in January 2018, the school contacted the authorities because the children had not been to class in several days. The police go over to the children's house to investigate, and they find the little girl in her bed with her face completely burned. The mom then told them about the voodoo ritual, and Peggy and her sister were arrested. They were charged with the following: mayhem for the permanent disfigurement of a child's face, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, assault and battery on a child with injury, indecent assault and battery on a child under the age of 14, and threatening to commit the crime of murder with a machete. Peggy's sister Rachel had less charges simply because she wasn't accused of actually performing the ritual. However, she was accused of aiding Peggy by holding the children down, which in my opinion is just as bad. The children's mother was not arrested. However, the kids were taken away from her while she went and was put into a mental institution for evaluation, rightfully so. The children are now in foster care, unfortunately. In February of 2020, their trial took place, and because the children were in foster care and could not testify, everything was dropped. Kyra Malika Daniels, who is a professor at Boston College, said the following about this case. I'm not familiar with this manner of ritual activity in Haitian Voodoo. It is common for devotees to cleanse their children in ritual healing baths to help them with challenges that may be physical or psychosocial. It is not part of the tradition, however, to endanger a child by burning their face or exorcising demons. This last act is more connected to evangelical Christianity. In 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, a Russian man by the name of Anton Shabanov marries the love of his life. However, over the course of the next few months, friends say that while they were not yet divorcing, Anton and his newly wed wife were no longer living together, and they had separated. Anton was devastated, and he was ready to do anything to win her back. He had, in fact, tried to do everything to win her back, and nothing seemed to be working. So, in a last desperate attempt, he turned to the occult. He had heard whisperings of a man named Nikolai Ivanov, who would perform black magic rituals to help people in the area with anything they needed. He was very highly sought after. However, he was not, in fact, a magician. He was just a fraudster and a thief. Regardless, Anton didn't know this, so he contacts Nikolai, and in early November of 2021, they meet in a forest in Astrakhan, Russia, which is right on the edge of the Caspian Sea. Nikolai had told Anton to bring personal belongings of both himself and his wife because they needed to be buried in this ritual. Once they get into the forest clearing, Nikolai says, "Here's a shovel. You gotta dig a hole. We gotta bury this stuff. We'll do our ritual, and then the love of your life will come back to you." So Anton begins to dig. While he's digging, Nikolai starts to say some pretty rude stuff about his wife. He's like, "Ugh, hasn't even been a year. You can't even keep your marriage together for less than a year. What is kind of man are you?" And Anton, who's already hurting, snaps and starts to fight Nikolai. Nikolai, however, had brought his own axe, perhaps assuming something like this would happen, and he chopped at the back of Anton's neck and head until he was dead. He pushed him as far as he could into this small hole that had been dug, and then covered the rest of his body with some branches and dead leaves and stuff. I couldn't find anything on how he was caught or why he was found out, but he was caught almost immediately, and he confessed and was sentenced to 9.5 years in a very strict regime Russian labor camp, which sounds horrifying. He was also ordered to pay $30,000 to Anton's not yet divorced wife. I might look down a couple times during this story because I've taken little notes on the pronunciations and names, just as a forewarning. So, on October 14th, 2021, a Chinese influencer by the name of Luo Xiao Mao Mao Zi, she started a live stream on the Douyin platform. In China, TikTok is banned. However, they do have their own TikTok-like platform. It's essentially the exact same thing, but for only mainland Chinese people. So she was very popular on this platform. She had almost 700,000 followers, and people loved her for her fun and spunky attitude. Before she started her live stream, she posted a video saying that it would probably be her last video and that she had recently been hospitalized for depression for over 2 months, and that's why she had taken a little bit of a break. The last thing she says in the video is, "I appear to be happy, but this is all for show. I hope everyone will be happy when they see my videos, and I hope that they will see that I am happy too. But I cannot hold on anymore." During her live stream, she's goaded on by her thousands of followers to drink a bottle of pesticides, and though she's rushed to the hospital, she does not make it. I wanted to take a second here and say, if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts or you know somebody who is, there are hotlines you can contact. There are people you can talk to. I will leave links for those in the description down below if you would like to check them out. Bullying has always been a problem. However, with the increase of social media in our lives, it really is taking a toll on young people everywhere. And that is exactly what Luo was going through. Her family does not believe that she would have committed suicide if she had not been egged on by thousands of people. Her body was transported to rural Hunan, which was her birthplace, and it was sent to a crematorium to be cremated. When her body gets to the crematorium, the 3 people that were supposed to be working on her body, they were named Shao, Zhang, and Li. They unzip the body bag and they recognize her face. All of them had watched her and followed her on the Douyin platform, and they were really excited. They all look at each other and they immediately know they're going to steal her body. In rural China, there's a ritual called the ghost wedding that has been popular for over 3,000 years. It's a ritual where one or both deceased parties are basically married together in a ghost ceremony. It often happens when engaged couples pass away before their marriage can take place, or if a bachelor or bachelorette passes away and the family doesn't want them to be lonely in the afterlife. All in all, it's a beautiful sentiment. They want to marry the ghosts of their children so that they have a partner through all of life. However, you can see this creates something of a problem. Ghost marriages are banned in China. However, that does not stop people from stealing and selling bodies and ashes on the black market. It's been revealed that some undertakers of this heinous crime make about $10,000 to $15,000 per body. The 3 men set up a plan. One of them is going to cremate the ashes and then switch it out with a powder. The other one will pull the car around and they'll get the ashes in the car real quick, drive away. And while all of this is happening, the 3rd person set up a sale for the ashes to be purchased. The buyer, however, ended up backing out. An employee at the crematorium realized what was happening and the police caught them. They are currently in jail. Alright, so those are all the stories I have for you today. Again, I had a lot of fun doing this, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I hope you all have a wonderful end to your weekend, and I'll see you next week.